Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. As far as XRP price action for the duration of this market cycle, I'm beginning to wonder if perhaps expectations are too low. In fact, I've been thinking about my own expectations for XRP price action and wondering if what I'm hoping and expecting are perhaps a bit lower than what reality will bring. And there's no way to know, and I don't make price predictions, so that's not what this is about. I always think this is a fun and interesting conversation, but I was thinking about this a good bit today because, here's what actually set it up. I was listening to a podcast that had the inventor of the stock to flow model. Well, not the stock to flow model in general, but the guy that first applied it to Bitcoin specifically. He was being interviewed just the other day by Anthony Pompliano. It was maybe just called a discussion. But I was listening to this. It was about an hour long. I was listening to this afternoon as I was walking my pet peeve at the local park. And it got me thinking about a number of things. And some of this I'd actually mentioned recently. I'm noticing that a lot of the analysts that I personally respect and follow, it seems like the majority of them are of the mindset that, yes, of course, Bitcoin will be going over $100,000 this market cycle. And not just that, some of them think it's going to go to like 150, 200. Some of them think over $250,000. That seems to be the majority opinion. And I've noticed that with this batch of analysts that I follow, it's frequently the case that the majority is correct. None of them are right about everything, and that would be an unrealistic expectation. But a lot of time, when there's a bunch of overlap, I just notice that, not every time, but more likely than not, what they're expecting comes to pass. And so I was looking at that, and I was thinking about some of the models that this guy, his name's PlanB, he's the one that applied the stock to flow model to Bitcoin. He's the first one to do that. The models that he's running, and he talked about this in great detail in this podcast, like the models have, like, just if you just apply them to Bitcoin from the beginning of time, they've never been invalidated. And you know what the expectations are for this quarter? Oh, I'm about to tell you. And so I'm sitting here thinking about all of this, how so many of the analysts that I follow really do think that we're going to see some bonkers price action. I'm looking at some of these. I'm thinking about some of the charts that PlanB was talking about here, and how he stated, look, and he said too, is like, look, of course I can be wrong. And I like it when people acknowledge that and they don't have the ego. Like, yes, of course I can be wrong, but he said flatly, if we don't hit these levels I'm about to share with you in just a moment, then like my model for the first time in the history of Bitcoin is invalidated. And if it's not invalidated, we're going to see some serious fireworks. And then I was thinking about the implications of that for the price action of XRP. That's where my brain was headed this afternoon here. And but look, before I go further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I'm not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby, just for fun. There is nothing special about me, and I'm not pretending to be some sort of internet finance guru. I most certainly am not. I'm a dude named Moon Lambeau. Think about that. Don't make no damn sense. As I record this, XRP's at $1.13. Bitcoin's at $56,381. Market cap for the asset class, $2.36 trillion, and Bitcoin dominance down just a hair to 44.9%. How are the lemmings feeling today? Yes, the typical retail speculator. They're still feeling greedy. Not as greedy as yesterday. Yesterday, they were feeling extremely greedy at 78 out of 100. Today, it's a little bit lower, 70 out of 100. So they're still being greedy sons of bitches, but not quite as greedy as sons of bitches as they were just yesterday. And so let's talk about this here. Here's a chart that PlanB shared today, actually. And this is the guy I was talking about here. He just recently hit 1 million followers on Twitter. There's a reason people are following this guy. And he's just been blown up like if you go back a year ago, I think he had like 200,000 followers or something like that, which is still a lot. Don't get me wrong, but damn, his following is blowing up. And I do understand why. There are a lot of reasons, but his models have just worked. If you just apply the model to the beginning of time, it's just worked to this point. And so I'm sitting here asking myself, Is this the first one right here when all this excitement is going on? That, we're about to see this blow off top for this market cycle, I believe. And is this actually going to be the first time that his models will be invalidated? Is that probable? And then I'm thinking about what the expectations of all these analysts that I respect and follow, who are typically just more right than they are wrong. And then, so check this out. Here's the first chart. If you look through Bitcoin volatility, you see 200-week moving average always going up and Bitcoin never closing a month below 200-week moving average. The trend is your friend. And here you can see a chart going back to you can see on the left there, 2013 to today. It has always trended upwards. And the colors here you can see indicate a month to the halving, the Bitcoin halving. And so when you see blue, like right where I'm circling here, this is the most recent halving. That's when that happened, 2020, and then the color here switched to red, indicating that we're the furthest point away to the next Bitcoin halving on this chart. And you can see the colors change as you get closer. That's all that the colors mean there. But look at the trend, and so you can look at when you see the upward price action and to what degree after the halving. And this is a huge part of what he's talking about. The reason this is cyclical, and you can track this, is because of the halving. It impacts the actual available quantity of new Bitcoin from miners. And so take a look at this. There was this article that covered this. And actually, before I even say that, I wanted to mention also, it's kind of an interesting thing. This guy, PlanB, he mentioned that he lives in the Netherlands, and his entire career is in just financial analysis, basically. And so he works for some sort of firm that manages funds for very wealthy firms. And he cited that there was one firm, I think he said firm, I'd have to go back and listen to the podcast, but maybe it could have been an individual. I think it was a firm, he said, though, that had like it had to have been. Yeah, it was like $100 billion. Now I'm thinking about $100 billion. He just cited that as one example. And so he's anonymous. You know why he's anonymous? And he didn't mention it in the podcast. I just knew this because it's been mentioned previously. He's anonymous because he's operating in the world of finance, and he's worried about what his clients would think if they knew that he were this into Bitcoin. That's effectively it. And it's so funny because, if you fast forward into like the future, another decade, it's like if you don't get Bitcoin and crypto at that point, then you're the weirdo. And we're edging closer. I'd say even at this point, you would think he'd be safe enough to come out and be public. But I understand. I respect where he's coming from. If that's the reason, I totally understand it. But take a look at this from the Daily Hodl. PlanB unveils Bitcoin price prediction for end of 2021. Forecasts when current crypto cycle will collapse. So this is always an interesting topic of conversation. How high is Bitcoin going, and when are we going to be in the next bear market? And more importantly, if you're someone like me, and you are, I'm guessing you hold XRP also. If you're listening to this channel, it's an XRP-centric YouTube channel. What does that mean for XRP? Exactly, and this is why I started off the video by stating I'm starting to think that my expectations have been too low. And I'll explain more on that in just a second. But let me run through some of this data first so you get the broader scope of what I've been thinking through today. Renowned quantitative analyst PlanB is revealing what he thinks the end of this year will bring for Bitcoin and how much longer the current crypto bull market can last. In a new interview with Anthony Pompliano, the pseudonymous analyst, known for being the first to apply the stock-to-flow model to Bitcoin, says that he'll be caught off guard if Bitcoin remains below the six-figure mark by the end of 2021. Yes, folks, you're talking about a six-figure Bitcoin for the first time ever before the year's over. And we're already about halfway through October, just about here. So here's a quote from him. I would be very, very surprised if Bitcoin's price would be below $100,000 at the end of the year. That would sort of invalidate my view, my models, and that would certainly surprise me. I do think we will see a price that is at least $135,000 by Christmas. That's what my floor model says. Basically, I'm using three kinds of models that all say the same thing. And so here's the deal as this pertains to XRP. I've always said like there's wherever XRP price is going to go, and I still don't pretend to know what that number is going to be this cycle or a decade from now. I don't know. I just assuming as long as adoption continues to take hold like it is now, my answer would just be much higher. That's as close as I can get to reality here. But now, in the short term, I'm sitting here thinking, because let me back up just like a little hair here. I've been thinking for the longest damn time that of course I acknowledge like $20 to $30 XRP. It's certainly possible. Even this market cycle, it could be possible. And then I became more confident over the last call it maybe I don't know 9 or 10 months. I'd have to go back and look at the charts, but at some point much earlier this year, I got to a point where I was like, wow, I believe it's like highly probable that XRP at a minimum is going to hit $10. The reason I got to that point is because I saw how high Bitcoin was going. So maybe it was maybe more like March or April. Bitcoin trending up that high. I saw how high Ethereum got, and I know that Ethereum and XRP had the same peak market cap last market cycle. And so when we got there, it wasn't until this calendar year where I was like, wow, I really think it's much more probable than not that we're going to see at least $10 XRP. And so now I'm sitting in here thinking though, and by the way, look, if you listen to me like a year ago, I wouldn't have denied $10 or $20 or $30 XRP possible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the degree to which I think it's perhaps more probable than not. And so now, seeing all of these opinions from all these analysts that I respect and follow, and I know because I follow them, are much more right than they are wrong. And then seeing some of these models that were discussed by PlanB here, for example, which have not been invalidated to this point, seeing all of this here, I'm wondering if it's perhaps more probable that Bitcoin actually will go this high. And if that's the case, this is where you get to a place where XRP, I don't know if this is true. If you're talking about at least $135,000 Bitcoin, and based on how XRP reacted to Bitcoin price action historically, including last market cycle, importantly, well, how do you not have at least $20 XRP? And so I'm starting to wonder, is it perhaps the case that in terms of what I thought was probable, maybe I need to readjust it. Maybe everybody does. I'm not sure. This is why, I'm very curious to hear everybody else's take on this. Like, what is reasonable? And I know it sounds hard to believe numbers like these when you're so far away from it, but if you just look at the data, like, things happen quick in crypto. And actually, PlanB talked about this in this interview the other day. And he says, he noted this, and I know this to be true too. Like, people new to crypto, they have a hard time grasping, like, how are you saying that, like, Bitcoin could go from where it is now, $50 whatever thousand, to in a matter of months being worth over $250,000? Like, that just doesn't compute to them because that's too high of a dollar gain. But he just notes, if you just look at the growth rate, like, the growth rate is what's increasing. Which also makes sense if you know what a technology bell curve is, which I mention from time to time on this channel. It makes sense just in terms of adoption and more people coming in. And of course, then there's more money. All of it actually makes sense. There's not that much money in crypto. That's the other thing people don't get. So there's a frenzy around the asset class that helps spur lots of FOMOing and all that jazz. But there's not much money. And so to get this really serious multiplier effect, it doesn't take that much money coming in. So the idea of Bitcoin going up to $250,000, it only seems impossible and ridiculous until it happens. Tell somebody a decade ago when Bitcoin was worth like 10 or 20 or 30 bucks or $100 that it would be worth eventually 65,000, which is about what it hit earlier this year, and like they'd find that even more unbelievable. So it's all about perspective, and I get it. History hasn't unfolded to the point where we've seen that happen yet, so I understand that. But how could XRP not get to those types of levels if we're going to see this? And is it not perhaps more probable that we actually will get there? And that's what I'm wondering. We're going to find out soon. We're going to find out very soon. Because, again, it's almost halfway through October. So the fireworks are coming. It's just a question of how high. And so then I think about like the blockchain backer who I think does a fantastic job. He's substantially more correct than he is incorrect. And nobody's going to be perfectly correct about their expectations for the movements within the market in terms of price action. And then blockchain backer will tell you just as much. But damn, he's right. There's a reason he's got the massive following that he's got. He's way more correct than incorrect. And I just remember even thinking back to like a year ago when XRP was bumping around from like 20 to 30 cent region for how many months was that was happening? And he called with conviction the bottom of that range for that short-term price action over that span of a couple, 2-3 months, whatever it was. And that's just one example, but he's right about stuff all the time, which is why it's interesting to see that he actually thinks Bitcoin is going to top off maybe on the high end 85,000, XRP on the high end $13. And that's a minority position. It doesn't mean he's wrong, and even if he is wrong, it does nothing to affect the appreciation and respect that I have for him. But I am sitting here wondering, given that it's a minority position, is there something to the idea of, the group of analysts that I follow on the whole? Is it more likely perhaps that there's something to the group wisdom? I don't know. I've noticed that when this happens, more likely than not, the group is correct. That's all I'm saying. The group is usually correct. It doesn't mean the group will always be correct, but I'm just telling you my personal experience is that the group of analysts that I follow, usually the majority of them think something's happening, they're correct, which is why I'm sitting here staring at XRP and looking at my personal holdings and just thinking, holy hell, if this is actually going to happen and Bitcoin's really going to go this high, then XRP is going to go absolutely ballistic. The piece continues. PlanB says his 3 models are the stock to flow, which is traditionally used in the commodities markets to derive price based on the flow of supply, another model which utilizes on-chain signals, and lastly, a floor model that aims to find the lowest possible price for Bitcoin. And here's another quote. If we look at the on-chain signals right now, I would say that top is at least a couple of months, say 6 months from here. So that would be the end of Q1 of 2022, maybe later. And so there you go. You're talking about the top of this cycle perhaps ending as late as the end of the first quarter 2022. Possibly later, he says here. And the piece wraps up by stating the top end of PlanB's stock to flow X model pins $288,000 for Bitcoin at the peak of this cycle. However, the top analyst suggests that a shot above that target before finally correcting is not impossible. And by the way, he does, and he mentioned this in the podcast too, he absolutely subscribes to what I subscribe to in terms of the corrective price action that we'll see after this. The people that think that we're just going to go up forever, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. If we see explosive price action as described here, there's going to be a massive crash down probably over 80%, which has happened for Bitcoin 3 times in history, over 80% corrections. And if you're talking about an upside like this, yeah. Now, if we don't see an upside like this, then no, I wouldn't expect an 80% correction. But if you're talking about moving up that quickly, bubble forming, yes. Oh, absolutely, that would be a coming here. And then there was also this. Take a look at this from Glassnode. This is worth knowing as well. Data is our friend, people. Bitcoin long-term holder supply is currently increasing at between 13x and 15x Bitcoin issuance. In other words, long-term holders are stacking sats 13 times faster than fresh coins are being minted by miners. Whew. Folks, do you see how supply and demand works here? There's not enough Bitcoin for everyone on the planet, not at these prices. Not the way the current situation with supply and demand, it's off the market. All of this, so technically the Bitcoin's still in circulation. It's in circulation after it's issued, but it's not for sale on exchange. It's being held. It's not available. There's less Bitcoin available and more people coming in. It's getting snatched up faster than it's being created. What do you think is going to happen? This is happening in a bull market right before the blow-off top. You got to see what's happening here. The writing's on the wall. Here's a tweet from chart analyst DIY Investing. Bitcoin versus altcoins. Every blow-off top, altcoins lag Bitcoin. We should expect the same to play out in Q4. Once Bitcoin tops, we get a major divergence where altcoins actually make one more higher high as Bitcoin makes its first lower high in the bear market. And here's the chart that he shared right here. And this is exactly what we have seen in the past year. Here's the Bitcoin top, last market cycle. And by the way, Bitcoin hit its top right around when XRP started running from 20-something cents, ultimately up to $4, almost $4 anyway, about 2.5 weeks later. And so then after that, Bitcoin, you can see it just ultimately cratered down. Then you can see it rallied up a bit. before crashing down dramatically further. But yeah, the altcoins will ultimately go after Bitcoin, the vast majority of them anyway, not 100% of them. We've already seen a bunch of coin. Well, shouldn't say a bunch. We've seen a handful of coins run up dramatically even this year to this point. But yeah, most of the craziness, it's going to happen for altcoins right around that time when Bitcoin's running up or right after it. And so here's a tweet that Michael Vandepop, chart analyst, retweeted from somebody named PostyETH. And PostyETH wrote, "People who joined in 2021 might be confused as to why Bitcoin isn't dragging altcoin/USD pairs up like we saw in first quarter of this year. Look at price action and Bitcoin dominance during fourth quarter of 2020. Alts will explode when Bitcoin slows down." And so that's a rather good point. And Michael Vandepop wrote the following in regards to that. Yeah, we are probably going to copy/paste Q4 2020 and Q1 2021 again in the coming 6 months. First, altcoins didn't go well. But when ETH started to break out in the Bitcoin pair, it pulled a 6 to 7x, and others 100x. Yeah, and so why did the others go 100x when ETH did only 6 to 7x? Because there was less money in them. They were less liquid. So, of course, there was a greater multiplier effect. But yeah, you just have to wait. So when Bitcoin runs, it's like Bitcoin day on the days like that. But inevitably, it ends up going range bound, just trading sideways, and then that gives altcoins an opportunity to start running. Some money's taken out of Bitcoin ultimately, and that's when things really start to get ballistic. And so it's all coming here. And so it's again though, just as far as XRP though, it's not like I'm going to sit here and make a prediction on it. I don't pretend to know. What I'm sharing with you here is that the more I'm thinking through this, and the more data that we have, and the closer we get to this blow off top, I'm starting to suspect that perhaps it's the case that it's more probable that these higher numbers might actually become reality. But I do not know if that will happen. I'm not pretending to know. I'm just sharing some thoughts because I've been thinking through it, just like I'm sure all of you think about. I think about this all the damn time, especially these days because we're so close to this blow off top. I just don't know how big the blow off top is going to be, but I'm starting to think, because I just kind of made peace like mentally where I was like, okay, so XRP, at least $10. Okay, but now I'm starting to think, wait a minute, am I really? Am I thinking big enough? Am I really? Because I'm starting to wonder. I mean, because look, if Bitcoin goes, like I said, maybe I should be thinking more like the $20 to $30 range. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's the thing, though. And so you can look back at hindsight, and you could bring this video up in hindsight and be like, yeah, see, come on. Of course it was or wasn't going to do so and so. Yeah, all right, Monday morning quarterback. Yeah, but we don't have that right now. And so I'm just sitting here thinking, perhaps it's the case that it's more probable that it's going to go higher than what I thought was perhaps likely. But I don't know. Look, it's all dependent on Bitcoin in the end. And so everybody's got their own opinion. I'm just sharing with you. This is the direction that I'm beginning to lean towards of late, and it's based on additional information that I've learned and it's not I say that, but like a huge chunk of that is just seeing the market unfold in real time. So the closer we get to this final blow off top, and when it becomes clearer and clearer. So like with each passing day, week, month, it becomes that much more clear based on the data that we're receiving, based on the price action in terms of what is likely. So that's a huge part of it. Like a year ago, there's no way I could have known everything that I know now. But now that I do see all of the price action, how it unfolded, I have suspicions about what things are going to look like at the tail end of this. And I think it's going to be incredible for XRP. I think that XRP holders are absolutely going to be validated. We've been right, of course. XRP is going to ultimately have some massive moves. That's what I think anyway. So let me know what you think below. I'll go ahead and wrap up here, but it's always interesting food for thought. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Nambo.